I'm Alan Weiss, and this is The Writing on the Wall. Welcome back to Writing on the Wall. This episode is how I would change education. This is a thing with me. You know, we're involved in existential threats. It was global warming and then it became climate change. But we have real issues in front of us. Things like immigration. Things like the fact that our morbidity is outpacing our fertility. And we need an intelligent immigration system if we're going to replace talent because we're not replacing ourselves. We have legitimate things directly in front of us like AI and how it can be intelligently used, partly to offset population decline, but also to stop being so fearful of it. But to me, underneath all this is education. Our educational system is 200 years old. So first, we need to stop warehousing kids. We need to stop putting kids together as we did centuries ago because they're in a certain age group, irrespective of how well they can progress academically and produce results. I know all about socialization. There are other ways to do it than warehousing kids because of their age and holding faster kids back. So we have to move kids as they learn, in my opinion. And we have to measure learning by outcomes, by application, by test results, and so forth, not by feel good. Number two, we have to stop defaulting to college educations. There's no reason why everyone should expect or want to go to college. And in fact, I will say by digression that one of the big changes you will see in the next few years is at the university level, as AI takes care of a lot of remote learning and coaching, as tuitions can no longer accelerate the way they have been, and as the whole idea of indoctrinating students with political ideology has to disappear. So there are too many kids who go to college who just sit there and get their ticket stamped. I went to a great school. A lot of people next to me in these classes graduated not a whole lot smarter than when they got in. Not a whole lot more educated, but they had a diploma to speak about. So I think we have to teach life skills in terms of educating people. Life skills are things like civics and account management and do-it-yourself repairs. Do you remember, some of you, in grammar school, the boys took shop and the girls took home ed? Now, there's no reason to segregate that today, but we need those kinds of life skills to get along. Think of the pandemic. There's a growing tendency today, which will accelerate, to hire competence and not credentials. Airlines right now are hiring future pilots without college educations. It's more important they can learn to land a plane than discuss Schopenhauer. We have to end teachers' unions' control of schools. This should not be a unionized influence. We should pay teachers more, but we should expect more from teachers. We should introduce carrots and sticks, in other words, consequences. You know, there's a famous rubber room in Manhattan for the school system over there, where teachers who were accused of everything from watching porn to pedophilia to sexual harassment can't be fired without lengthy procedures and have to report somewhere every day in order to keep getting paid. So they spend 8 hours a day in this room doing crossword puzzles and reading books every single day. If they don't come, they can't get paid. That's ridiculous. When Albert Shanker was head of the teachers union in New York, they asked him, why don't you ever introduce initiatives for the kids? All your initiatives are about the teachers. And he said, when the kids vote for the president of the teachers union, I'll introduce initiatives for them. But in the meantime, they don't vote, the teachers do. Well, the president today is Randi Weingarten, and she's making $600,000 before perquisites. The average teacher is making maybe $60,000, 10%. So we have to make the job rewarding, but also more demanding. You know, we have to have parents involved. When I was younger, we had open houses in the evening once or twice a year where parents could come and speak to the teachers with us present and look at our work. Today, the teachers won't do that. Occasionally, they're held during the day, usually when both parents are at work. So we have to end mainstreaming, end the behavioral problems that creates, and calls for teachers to act like more than teachers, to control this behavior. Non-English speakers have to learn English somehow, but not necessarily in a classroom where they're going to hold back the learning of others. I taught for a while on innovation as a visiting lecturer at University of Rhode Island, and the professor there, is a wonderful woman, explained to me on one occasion that she had a kid in the class with Tourette's. I know Tourette's. As a child, one of my friends had Tourette's, although we didn't realize what it was at the time. And so she introduced me to the kid before we began the class. And very nice guy, but he said, "Let me show you what you'll expect from me." And he indicated the rapid movements he'd make, the occasional cursing, and the typical Tourette syndrome, almost a complete inability to control outbursts. And that's exactly what happened in class. And so we dealt with it. The class was used to dealing with it, and I was educated to deal with it. But I said to the teacher later, the professor, if this goes on every time you hold this class, to what percent do you think the rest of the class is losing learning, is not getting a learning opportunity? And she said, we're about 80% effective. You have to ask yourself, is that really worth it? She says, well, they're learning how to interact with kids like this. Yeah, fair enough. But what are they missing in doing that? Aren't there other ways to accomplish that? Right now, teachers have the lowest grade point averages in schools and perform the worst on tests. Now, before you excoriate me, my wife taught for 5 years, my sister is a retired teacher, and my niece is teaching. I've got nothing against the teaching profession. They all did fine jobs or are doing fine jobs. The problem is, though, nobody can work well under this current system. The former president of the University of Rhode Island, who was a client of mine, told me he thinks people with poorer finances and poorer grades go to inexpensive and mediocre schools. They used to be called in New Jersey teachers' colleges, in fact. So we have to get rid of the progressive nonsense like new math and things like this, and we have to allow for choice so parents can send their kids to the best possible schools. Right now we finance schools largely through property taxes, meaning the most affluent communities have the highest taxes, can support the best schools, which draw more affluent people who want to be there and pay more taxes. That's not the way to do it. Taxes have to be pooled so everybody gets equal treatment. So changing school financing within a state, I think, is necessary to improve education. We also have to enforce discipline. Not long ago, an assistant principal thought he might have to go to jail. He was arrested because in stopping a female black student from heading for a fight and putting his hand on her arm, she claimed he physically abused her. Turns out she had threatened to fight, and she was on her way to the fight, and she claimed abuse, and there was a movement to have him fired. Ultimately, people came to his defense, and he wasn't fired. But I do think we need to mandate school officers. Anyone who says that children are fearful of people in uniforms, I think they'd be more fearful of people who have guns pointing at them. Finally, I think we have to apply common sense and avoid political correctness and avoid wokeness. I don't think teachers or professors in higher education should be able to enforce an ideology upon kids, make decisions about how well they do or whether they're accepted in the class based on politics or names or how they dress or how they want to be addressed. I don't think teachers have the right to allow kids to change their names in class or change their attire without informing the parents. So teachers' personal beliefs, their politics, their considerations about gender don't belong in a classroom. They belong in private discussion. They belong perhaps in intellectual discourse among peers, but not with our kids. We have to be fairer to our kids because if they're not educated well, they are not going to make it at an age which more and more requires critical thinking and less physical labor. It's as simple as that.